Okay. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Senate Committee on Labor. We have one bill for hearing and/or consideration. Mr. Clerk, call the roll.
Senator Burke.
Present.
Senator Dela Cruz.
Present.
Senator Golden. Senator Lombardi.
Here.
Senator Lombardo.
Here.
Senator Pickard.
Here.
Senator Sosnowski.
Here.
Chairman Chacon.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, the first bill that we have today is Senate Bill 196. This is an act that we've passed at least 3 years in a row, and last year we missed it because of COVID. It's an act relating to labor and labor relations, dignity at work. And it establishes Dignity at Work Act to provide workers with more protection from bullying and harassment in the workplace. And as I played for our senators earlier on the committee, an excerpt from President Biden's initial statement after he got sworn in about stating that he would fire anyone on the spot that works for him in federal government that berated, talked down to one of their subordinates. So with that, we have, does any of the committee members have any questions? Okay, the first one we have signed up is Lynette Boymenard from the Northern Rhode Island Chamber. In opposition? Good afternoon, Lynette. How are you?
Good afternoon, Chairman. Good, thank you.
We're hearing bill today 196, a bill by myself and several other members, and you're signed up to speak in opposition of it.
I am. You're ready for me?
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Lynette Boymenard, and I'm here on behalf of the Northern Rhode Island Chamber of Commerce, but I believe you also probably have written testimony from a few chambers of commerce, which I won't go into detail. I would like to say that the chambers do understand the meaning behind the bill. It has a good concept to it. What we have concerns about are some of the specific pieces of the bill, the actual language. For instance, the definition of workplace bullying includes things like offensive language, overbearing supervision, pestering, gossiping, reminding a person of the past mistakes. It's these kinds of vague and all-encompassing terms, I guess I would say it, that we are concerned will lead to many lawsuits in the workplace. I did have a conversation with you, Chairman, and said that we were committing to work on something, an alternative, and we are still doing that. I apologize that it's not done yet. As you can imagine, there are a number of parties that are looking at it, but we are still committed to do that if there's time, either now or as we continue through the session. We would very much like to work with you. With that, I think I'll just leave it for questions.
Okay, does any member have any questions? Senator Lombardi, did you have your hand raised?
No, I did not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. Lynette, I believe that says no one has any questions for you. Thank you for your testimony, and have a good afternoon.
Thank you. You too, Chairman.
Okay. Next, we have Deborah Fallow.
No, I did not, Mr. Chairman.
I believe that no one has any questions for you. Deborah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Could you turn your TV down? We're getting feedback from it.
Okay, yep, it's off.
Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to the Senate Committee on Labor. And you're here to testify in support of S-196. Could we hear your testimony, please?
Sure. So my name is Deborah Fallow. Thank you for having me. I've been working with targets of workplace abuse for years as an educator on this topic, and I want to address the big picture benefits of passing workplace anti-abuse legislation. I want to start with women and non-white workers. So right now we simply don't have adequate protections from bias that manifests itself in abuse of power, yet we're most likely to endure abuse at work. Currently, civil rights law protects us ineffectively from discrimination, but not overall malicious treatment and severe health harm. Even then, we have to prove discriminatory intent. So there's a huge gap in the law that's existed for too long that leaves white men in most power positions. And when we report abuse, about, quote, 72% of employers do nothing to address the abuse, according to the Workplace Bullying Institute. So this bill fixes this widespread problem of inadequate protections from bias that results in abuse that prevent women and non-white workers from getting ahead. I sent the committee notes on research from 3 University of Chicago professors on the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of discrimination law from the 2017 book Rights on Trial. And I'd really like to highlight the fact that with discrimination law, which discrimination is unlawful, only 3% of those who report unfair treatment at work reported they sued the company or coworker. So those who argue that the floodgates will open for litigation if this bill passes, it's simply a fear-mongering argument. It doesn't hold any weight. It's not rooted in research. Employees generally don't want to sue. They want their employers to change, and that happens through accountability. So the next and last major issue that I want to talk about is public health care costs. And employers externalize health care costs when they ignore employee well-being internally. When abused targets leave unhealthy work environments, they become burdens of taxpayers. They're frequently uninsured. When they get sick, they turn to ERs for care, where delivering primary care is not at all cost efficient. And by the time they get there, their health has already deteriorated to a point where treatment expenses are far greater than earlier intervention would have been. So this bill would incentivize employers to address employee well-being internally and not make it a public problem, which it now is. Numbers back up these problems. In his book, Dying for a Paycheck, of 2018, Stanford professor Jeffrey Pfeffer says, quote, the United States experiences about 59,000 excess deaths and about $63 billion in incremental costs annually compared to what would be predicted given its per capita income level. Considering the total toll previously estimated of about 120,000 excess deaths and $180 billion in costs, our analyses indicate that about half of the deaths and about a third of the incremental costs from workplace conditions appear to be potentially preventable if the United States were more similar to other advanced industrialized economies. And I sent this information in my written testimony. So prevention is both less expensive and more effective than remediation. So I'm going to leave off by saying that we have environmental regulations to limit environmental risks, but we don't mention the human impact of abuse. We don't leave environmental pollution to the discretion of CEOs. So why would we leave employee health up to CEOs when CEOs too often lead in ways that serve neither the employees nor the public nor themselves when you include the hidden costs of turnover and absenteeism, and there's a lot of research out there to back this up. So the U.S. is the last among all Western industrialized nations to acknowledge workplace abuse adequately. As a civilized society, there ought to be limits to what companies can do to their people. We should prohibit companies from abusing workers. And every session we don't act, we leave employees and employers to suffer and healthcare costs to soar, inaction costs lives, and damages the Rhode Island economy. I'd also like to point out that recently Puerto Rico passed a strong law on this issue. So a healthy workplace benefits not only the employee, but the public and also business in Rhode Island. So thank you for letting me testify today.
Thank you for your testimony. Are any of the committee members that have any questions? No? We thank you and hope you have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
Ann? Next one speaking in support is Ann Carr. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Senate Committee on Labor, and we're here to hear your testimony on Senate Bill 196.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ann Carr, and I support Senate Bill 196, the Dignity at Work Act, because I believe setting government standards for working conditions corrects many abuses workers face. Countries outside the United States call it workplace bullying or moral harassment, labor harassment, psychological violence, psychological abuse, or mobbing. Many nations identify and legally protect against the very set of behaviors described in the Dignity at Work Act. This is my account of events that happened to me as I recall them. For many years, I was an urban educator in a public high school and then a small progressive urban middle school. Along with teaching, I ran after-school programs, orientations, summer programs, and supervised interns, and I loved my job. A few years into the job, they hired a new teacher who I now consider a bully. She was a donor of the school, and her daughter was a founding teacher. Her first day on the job, she targeted a respected math department chair and was later removed from his department. Next, she targeted a young colleague who, before quitting, came to me in tears saying, I come from a nice family. I have a loving husband, but the things this woman says to me reverberate in my mind at night. Next, she targeted me by seething in the back of my classroom as I taught, accusing me publicly of lowering standards despite high student performance on standardized tests. She even accused me of paying interns to type my compositions in my classes. Even though I taught 5th grade, she had other absurdities meant to damage my professional reputation. Administrators who witnessed this behavior would just say to me, we knew she would be a problem when we hired her. She says the most awful things about you. She is toxic. She has home problems. You should hear the way she talks to her daughter in meetings. Stay away from her, and other things like that. They finally promised to move her away from me and gave me a large raise. She was never moved and enlisted her daughter to bully me, and I just didn't have the strength to fend off both of them. I got very ill and left on sick leave. I suffered what my psychiatrist called a psychological injury brought on by workplace abuse. I was prescribed heart medication following an abnormal EKG at the age of 44. And next came the typical mobbing frenzy of damage control when I returned to work. Administrators encouraged me to get another job, but I didn't think that was fair. They then said to me, we have no room for someone like you here. Then they said to me, and they put it in writing in an email, you're being let go because of the quality of your work and your inability to collaborate. But then they took it back again quickly in an email. Then they offered me a sabbatical with pay, but when the envelope came, it was spelled severance of many tens of thousands of dollars, which I did not accept because it was attached to a non-disclosure attachment agreement. So I would like to see this legislation passed because I don't want this to happen to my grown children or anyone else in the workforce. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your testimony. Are any committee members that have some questions? No? Thank you, and have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Next, we have Dara Starring. Technology isn't that great. Carol? Okay, we're moving on to Carol Geary. Good afternoon and welcome to the Senate Committee on Labor.
Thank you so very much. I'm honored to get the chance to speak. I am a librarian and I have experienced workplace bullying myself firsthand. I've written on it and actually done some research. And I just really wanted to share the devastation that this can have on people. My own life, my health was severely affected, my ability to work in my career. And I know from my research some people have even lost their lives due to workplace bullying. And I just wanted to implore you all to consider this legislation because right now, other than protected classes, most people don't have any resource to when this happens in their lives. And it's devastating for them and for their families. Thank you for letting me tell a little bit of my story.
Thank you. Any committee members with any questions? Okay, thank you, and we wish you a good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Catherine? Okay, next we have Katherine Schaeffer. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Do you have a TV or a computer going? I'm getting some back feed.
Okay, I just paused it.
Okay, that's a lot better. Okay, good afternoon, and we're here for your testimony.
Okay, good afternoon, esteemed gentlewomen and gentlemen of the great state of Rhode Island. My name is Katherine Schaeffer. I come before you today to provide testimony of what happened to me as a seasoned federal employee assigned to a new work assignment at Navy Base Bangor and the workplace bullying that unfolded there. I was assigned to Navy Base Bangor as a position of recreation supervisor. My pay was $65,000 per year. Soon after I took up my position, a coworker who I found out I was passed over for this position, that he was passed over for this position, began demeaning and denigrating me without cause. The coworker worked to subvert my leadership on multiple occasions. He attempted to overtake meetings. He subverted direct orders from me and informed employees not to follow my direction without cause. And he refused to he refused to take direct assignments from me, his assigned manager. My coworker felt emboldened that he went so far as to utter derogatory bullying remarks to me in a manager's meeting. This led to 3 managers stepping forward to lodge complaints with the director of our department. They explained in no small detail that they were horrified at this man's words and actions. They filed formal complaints with the director to object to the way my coworker was acting and the bullying attacks that they witnessed with their own eyes in a manager's office nonetheless, or in a manager's meeting. The thing about bullying, it is often difficult to detect the nuances unless you are involved in the bullying. I would liken it to a woman who is facing facing physical abuse by her spouse. Everyone around her can see that there is something wrong with the situation, but they do not understand the whole story. They can, however, see that the woman obviously has a black eye, but they don't understand. But they understand that she was physically abused, but they don't know how all of the situation unfolded. Bullying is much the same. Coworkers in a workplace are able to pick up on the abuse taking place, and they can sense the seriousness and insults, but there is no black eye like in a physical abuse case. But people can sense and identify that something bad is taking place. Such was my case. I had many employees step forward and offer their support and encouragement. I would also like to note that I also had employees step forward complaining at the same bullying by the same self-same coworker. In an attempt to address the situation, I reached out to our HR on several occasions as well as my supervisor for help, but unfortunately, help never materializes. I believe our workforce has not been properly trained to identify and respond to bullying in the workplace. In an era where being politically correct is of such importance, I can't understand why workplace bullying is not a crime. At the end of the day, my coworkers attacked were planned and premeditated with the objective to disrupt my work and create a hostile work environment. He succeeded at weaponizing bullying as a means to an end. Unfortunately for this weapon, bullying in the workplace was not yet identified by lawmakers of the state where I was working and where the transgressions took place. Finally, after 9 months in my position with this ongoing threatening atmosphere, I did the only thing I saw fit to get away from it, and I resigned my duties. And this was not taken lightly. I'm a single mother, and it's an extremely difficult decision to make. I lost my governmental position and salary due to bullying in the workplace and the ability to support my family. Bullying has serious life-altering consequences. In closing, I would like to inform you that the greatest military on the planet, the United States military, was perceptive enough to identify this weapon within their ranks and subsequently drew up DoD instructions to address harassment prevention for the men and women of the armed forces, instruction DoD 1020.03. However, these issuances did not cover the DoD civilians employees that worked hand in hand with the military. And I'll just read for you a couple of excerpts from that. And it says that bullying is behavior that is unwelcome or offensive to a reasonable person, whether oral, written, or physical, that creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. Harassment may include, it goes on to list a number of things, but at the end of it, it says threatening or provoking remarks, racial or other slurs, derogatory remarks about another person's accent or what have you. Bullying may involve the singling out of an individual from his or her co-workers for ridicule because he or she is considered different or weak. So basically, that's the gist of the law, but you can see that the armed forces was able to identify this. And if the armed forces can identify this and put some laws or some actions that take place that are followed to stop this type of behavior in the armed forces, I think that it behooves the legislative bodies also to follow suit to protect people who suffer such abuses without any chance for redress. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for the witness? Being none, good afternoon. And next,
Thank you.
Next, we have Amelia da Silva Tavares. Good afternoon, Amelia.
Hi, how are you?
Very well. We're here to listen to your testimony.
Thank you. Are we ready? I think I still hear somebody talking.
No, if you might be hearing some backfeed if you have a television or a computer on.
Oh, I don't. I just hear somebody talking about the bullying. So, but that's it. But that's on your end, so I don't know what's going on. I don't have anything else.
No, you can continue.
Okay. Hi, my name is Amelia. I've been at this for quite some time now. I'm going to kind of piggyback off of Deb Fallow, because we've provided a ton of statistics and, the threat that's caused to so many employees. I've been at this since 2016. I also help and counsel so many other victims from employer harassment and bullying on my own time. I too am a victim. I was hit hard with a cyber bully from work, a physician no less. Never did I ever encounter such cruelty in place of work with the elite professionals who have absolutely no empathy. I documented and printed all my culprits' malicious emails. Finally, formally reported to HR 2 years after many complaints, but to no avail. But the answer that I did get was that he was going nowhere. So that gave me an idea of what was going on at that institution as far as how they were going to handle harassment and bullying. I was able to pull out a ton of documentations and policies that they did not even know of, which is an embarrassment for them. And at that point, they still didn't help me. So I did the best I can to work at this place. I ended up with severe panic and anxiety attack and ended up in their own emergency room, diagnosed with severe panic and anxiety attack and a muscle strain, all from the stress that I had dealt with. About a year later after that, my autoimmune condition spiraled out of control. My doctor had encouraged me to come out of work, take a stress leave, something that I did not want to do. However, he insisted I did it or I could possibly have a heart attack. And at that point there, I thought of my family and my children, and I said, there's no way I'm going to do that to myself. Although I am stubborn and didn't want him to win, but ultimately my choice was to take care of my health. I'm in a better place now. I left the institution in 2016 and still say, or will I ever be 100%? The shock and trauma has left me paralyzed with a feeling that is undescribable. With that said, every single witness, all 13 employees of that healthcare institute are no longer employed there. Only 3 moved along and 10 were terminated. Imagine that. They can silence the workplace just like that, but I still have my proof in a binder. Whether you're a fan or not of Biden, Biden couldn't have put it better when he announced coming into office. Bullying in any capacity is not welcome in this administration. Anyone found to behave in such demeanor will be fired. This is certainly not verbatim, but it's exactly what I understood and exactly what should not be accepted in the workplace in 2021. However, the statistics of harm to employers, harm employers are causing their employees is surpassing every year. The suicidal death toll is climbing, but no one is ready for that conversation. Let's stop this ludicrous behavior and protect people, most of which are your constituents. I provided stats in my previous emails, and I know many of you are empaths and caring people. This is happening to your family and friends. Many are afraid to talk about it because they feel it makes them weak. But no, this makes us strong. When we don't speak up, change will never happen. And most importantly, are the people that, even through COVID, are dealing with tremendous stress, harassment, bullying, and it continues. I mean, this policy, this bill here, has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with hurting employers. It has everything to do with ensuring compliance with a policy that the institution already has in place. They cannot play favoritism. And this is where we are with the discrimination. It's sickening already. You know, there should not be discrimination in the workplace, and that's what it bluntly is. If they cannot follow and comply with their policy and help their employees, then what's next for us, you know? So it's either we stay there and stay sick and get worse, or we move on and move to another employer, and it's still happening to the employees there. So I can say, you know what, play a blind eye, I don't care, I'm moving on. But that's not fair and it's not right. I think everyone deserves equality in the workplace. And that's all I have to say at this time. And I hope that, we can make the right decision to protect our employees and move on from there. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, you're on mute.
Sorry.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Sharon. Welcome to the Senate Committee on Labor, and we're here to hear your testimony on Senate Bill 196.
Good afternoon, Senate Committee on Labor. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today to you all. I am a survivor and still surviving the the after effects of workplace abuse. I was an educator for 15 years, and I was a target of my administration. And I'll quote my arbitrating or my union rep at the time, stating that I had a target on my back. I worked in special education, and we had a new administration come on board, and they made changes, which is, of course, expected. But one of the things that they were changing was not ethical, of ethical standards, if you will. And there was a group of folks that stood up to that, and you became a target when you did. And I was one of those people. I'm shaking, so bear with me. I'm a little nervous. This is my first time speaking about this. So 72%, according to a caller that I had listened to earlier, said that 72% of people do not report this. I, as a single mother, wasn't going to report anything. I'm at my job to do my job, and we don't have, if you have a problem, you talk it out and you fix it. You don't have people going behind your, back, actually trying to entrap you and snare you up, especially when you're working with such a vulnerable population of people. But because there's no civil rights protection for workplace abuse, as when I started calling around and asking for help with how I was being treated in the workplace and being targeted according to my union, they were doing all that they could, but their hands are tied and limited. At any rate, 7 years fast forward, I'm still suffering from what happened to me, and I was wrongfully discharged. I won my job back, but I can't tell you the process that my family and I suffered from that. My friends, the friendships that I lost, the purpose of life. Someone spoke about the public health crisis that this has created. You can't even begin to understand what it's like to lose a job that you love, not a career that you've worked, a field that you've worked in. I found out later that the arbitration process that I went through, which is a whole other story, and I know I'm kind of skipping around a little bit. I'm trying to hit some highlights of of my experience to give you kind of some perspective where I'm coming from. I found out several years later, after the arbitration, that the board that governs the district that I worked for did not even read the arbitrator's decision, which I will quote the arbitrator now, and stating, a 40-year veteran arbitrator, I might add at that, stating that, and I quote, that the district was egregious and capricious, that they fabricated and exaggerated things, and they had other courses to take than what they took. But the reason why they wanted me gone is because the truth of the matter is that I was a squeaky wheel. I was the voice that they didn't want to hear. I was the sounding the alarm of a takeover that was pretty bad for everybody involved. And I took the hit, and there were no protections for me. How many other people, 72%, have taken hits like me and don't talk about it? My children suffered, my friendships suffered, my personal life suffered, my personal health has suffered. When I won my job back, to make this matter even further egregious, the checks and balances that are missing from S196 bill, that would provide some of these checks and balances that some of these administrations, or it doesn't even have to be a school district, it could be anywhere. But if you have some accountability to adhere to, even the arbitrator said in the 10-page scathing arbitration report, he stated that they even violated their own policies in order to do what they did to me. At any rate, they put me back in a classroom that I'd never worked in before with 10 adults and 10 wheelchairs. And my job as a 50-something-year-old woman was to lift these adults in and out of their chair all day long. And I was waiting for my back pay so I could go on and further my life and go out on my own terms. And they put me in this classroom I'd never worked in before. I don't even know how that was possible that they had 12 adults in there, but they did. This is all verifiable. I can send you all my information. I hurt I have 12 ruptured, bulging, herniated discs. So had there have been an S196 bill, would I be here today calling you and talking to you about 7 years later still suffering from what happened to me? I lost my home. I lost my career. I lost my sense of purpose. Depression. I spent 3 years in therapy. The reason that took place is because they didn't want to pay me the back pay. They fought me in court for another year, even though the arbitrator awarded me and made me whole. And so that's a whole other topic. But at any rate, the S196 bill, had that been in place when I called all those lawyers, when I was looking for help before I got injured, before it even went to the level that it went to, They would not have said, "Oh, Sharon, I'm sorry. There's no law against being a jerk. There's no law against being a you know what. No, I'm sorry. There's no law against being a mean person. There's no law against that. There's no. Well, you know what? You can't treat people and target people and destroy people's lives like that and just walk away and turn your back and it's okay. 72% of our population, 3/4 of the population, is suffering, and I hope Rhode Island can take this torch and light it and be the light and the beacon of light that people like me and the 71% or 71.5%, 71% need a bill like this to protect them, because I can tell you from personal experience and 7 years into it, I was a strong single mother. Nothing could have shook me. I raised 2 beautiful, wonderful, strong men by myself. I did it by myself. I worked 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. My son has a master's degree, working on his PhD. I did that. I was a very strong and bold woman, but I scared some people when they came in to do some things that they shouldn't have been doing, and there was nothing to protect me. And if there was an S-196, I guarantee you the level of gravity, of magnitude of suffering I went through, and many people like me, would not take place. It would be cut drastically. And I hope this all the testimonies will inspire this state of Rhode Island to be the torch and carry it and light that torch and carry it to protect people like me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimonies. Any of the members of the committee have any questions? Being none, good afternoon, and thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next, we have Alicia Ann Congdon. Good afternoon, Alicia. We're here for your testimony.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Welcome to the Senate Labor Committee, and we're here to hear your testimony on S-196.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I understand that I have under 5 minutes. Is that correct?
Right around there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
There's no stopwatch in front of me, so.
I just a good guideline. I don't want to take up too much time. I want to thank you for your time, and my name's Alicia Condon. I'm a Rhode Island resident, and have been in the labor force for quite some time as an employee, as a boss, as a business owner, and serving lots of business owners. So that's the perspective that I bring. I unfortunately have some direct experience in workplace bullying, and I was fortunate years ago to be able to transition to self-employment. As you know, it's been several years that workplace abuse legislation has been brought before the legislature. The Dignity at Work Act was first introduced last session, I believe, to replace the weaker Healthy Workplace Bill. The Senate Labor Committee wanted to modify the bill language, as I understand, in spring 2020, but was unfortunately interrupted by the COVID health crisis. This committee is familiar with the reasons why bullying creates hazards in the workplace and with the human tolls and workplace costs, which are well documented. It's my understanding that representatives from Chambers of Commerce and Business attend these hearings and are supportive, but may have concerns about the legislation opening up potential floodgates of response or issues. Additionally, I believe there have been some remarks about a definition of workplace bullying that may be too broad. Sorry, I hope I've understood this correctly. As I read the language, I also had, concerns about that too. In the IWA 0196, workplace bullying means an abuse or misuse of power through means that undermine, humiliate, denigrate, or sabotage a person in the workplace. And it goes on for quite some time. Under this definition, workplace bullying can take many forms. The definition is quite lengthy and detailed. I think we could all agree we could write 300 pages and still have a lot more to say about workplace bullying and its effects. The bottom line is that the evidence shows us that more support and safeguards are needed in Rhode Island to help reduce workplace bullying and its effects on individuals and companies. Many of us have had to deal with a bully at some point. The childhood bully is a well-known storyline in movies, and as children, we're encouraged to turn the other cheek and show bullies kindness and respect in hopes that negative behavior will be reduced and transmuted to cooperation and trust. Many children who exhibit bullying behaviors will learn, mature, and grow into responsible adulthood. Unfortunately, adults who demonstrate bullying behaviors in the workplace do not respond to overtures of kindness, friendship, and relationship mending, even when such activity is orchestrated by experienced HR departments. Targets are usually capable employees. Reporting of inappropriate behavior should, but usually does not work. Of concern, workplace bullies don't just bully their subordinates, they also bully people at their own level, and those in superior positions, and those at the highest level. I have personally seen this. Currently, the behavior is illegal only when it happens to a member of a protected class, as I understand. I believe it needs to change, and no one argues that bullying exists as an expensive problem that is unnecessary to our society. By law, people and companies carry insurance in case we are involved with an accident on the roadway or at work. We are not expected to, nor do we have the resources to pay for or solve the fallout of a workplace or roadway incident, and yet as individuals and companies, we're expected to bear the burden and deal with the fallout of workplace behaviors that may be negative. It seems that rather than a floodgate, that workplace behavior is best viewed as one of many hazards to be successfully managed at work, especially now as companies are buckling under the strain of high costs. As you know, workplace bullying is one of the highest drivers of turnover, risk, and liability. In my experience, companies are ready to embrace new ways of managing hazards like workplace bullying. To meet this need, the DAWA legislation strictly prohibits bullying in the U.S. workplace. Rather than opening the floodgates, it sets a clear and healthy boundary, takes the burden from the individual and the company and into the hands of professionals who possess the authority and training to enforce laws. By design, DAWA ensures that companies and individuals have access to proven strategies to address workplace bullying while simultaneously protecting companies and individuals. Its presence alone is a deterrent to bullying behaviors that may occur at work. For companies, this can translate to less time spent trying to cope with the problem and more time focused on the core activities geared towards mission and revenue. Because it protects human dignity, the adoption of DAWA in Rhode Island will reflect positive light on Rhode Island as a business-minded and humanitarian community, an achievement that can add value for lending, business expansion, and relocation into our state. I respectfully request your support for DAWA in Rhode Island on behalf of employees, company leaders, and business. I want to thank you for your time, and I hope that you'll support Rhode Island businesses and employees with this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you for the testimony. Are any committee members have any questions? Being none, we wish you a good afternoon and a good evening.
You as well, sir. Take care.
That concludes the testimony on S-196. A motion is in order. I have a motion for passage.
So moved.
Senator Lombardi moves, seconded by Senator Sosnowski. Mr. Clerk.
Senator Burke?
I don't think he heard you.
Senator Burke?
Yes.
Okay. Senator Dela Cruz?
I see she's muted.
Nope. She's trying.
My phone keeps trying to shut me off. I will be voting nay.
Senator Golden?
Yes.
Senator Lombardi?
Yes.
Senator Lombardo?
Yes.
Senator Picard,
Yes.
Senator Sosnowski,
Yes.
Chairman Chacon.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, that
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman?
motion is in order. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you for your time this evening, and wish you, everyone, a good evening.
Thank you.